Hey crafters! Today I'm using the Lawn Fawn set called Fox Costumes Before and After. I wanted to make a fun Halloween card and I had so much fun that I ended up making a birthday card as well. Hope you enjoy! So I started with a piece of paper that's 5 by 7 inches and I used some Versafine Onyx black ink and I stamped the cute little fox in the skeleton costume randomly all over my paper. Then I used my distress embossing pen and coated the ink in embossing ink and then dipped it in my clear embossing powder. I just used a paintbrush to get rid of any stray bits of embossing powder. If you prefer, you can always apply the embossing powder directly to the ink while it's still wet, but I wanted to make sure that the little bones on the costume were covered in embossing ink and clear embossing powder as well. So once that's done, I'm going to heat set it with my heat tool until it's completely melted. I find that heating from underneath is the best way because that way you don't have bits of embossing powder flying off your image. Once that's done, I'm going to do some very easy Copic coloring. So I'm just going to color the main part of the fox's head with this color of Copic, and then I'm going to fill in the rest with this color. I didn't add any blending today, just simple colors. Then I'm going to use my distress embossing pen and apply ink over all of the heads and then embossing powder, and then I'll heat these as well. Not only does that give our background a nice look, but it helps to protect these images from the techniques we're going to use next. So I'm going to start with some distress ink in black soot, and I'm going to blend that around the outside of the image, sort of like a vortex in the middle. It is a Halloween card after all, so it should be a little spooky. Then I'm going to take some Pixie powders and sprinkle them in the middle of the card and a little bit on the outside as well. Then I'm going to use my water and spray to blend this. I'm also going to blend it a little bit with this paintbrush. Now I'm going to set this aside to dry and I'll start working on my second card. So I've already stamped, colored, and embossed some images from the same stamp set, and I'm going to start this one by blending Salty Ocean in the middle and then some picked raspberry in the very center and around that blue ring. Then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to add the wilted violet around the outside. I just wanted to show you that you could use the same techniques in a different color scheme and get a completely different card. Also, I really love the stamp set and I really wanted to use another one of those foxes. Now it's starting to look like a tie-dyed pattern here, which just looks amazing. Now I thought it would be fun to spray this with water before adding the Pixie powders, just to have some of that distress ink react to the water. So I've sprinkled on some Pixie powders here, and then I sprayed them with my water, and then I put this aside to dry. Meanwhile, I'm going to add some orange and purple Pixie powder to this image just to brighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to use my paintbrush and splatter it over the card and then allow this to dry again before I move on to the next step. As this isn't watercolor, I need to make sure it's completely dry between steps. So for my main sentiment, I'm going to use a little bit of paper and ink blend some Crackling Campfire Distress ink onto it. Then I'm going to use the orange Pixie powder and sprinkle it on top. This will cause the distress ink to react to the water and the Pixie powder and give it a spooky Halloween-y look. Once I'm happy with that, I can use my heat tool or let it dry before I die cut my sentiment. So I'm going to use some letters from Oliver's Stitched ABCs and spell out boo. And then I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. Now I will have to cut this out twice as there's only one O in the set. Once I've done that, I'm going to cut the same sentiment again with this purple fun foam, and I'm going to glue the orange paper onto the purple foam. Now for this I used my PVA or white glue to adhere the pieces together, but you could always run it through your sticker maker if you prefer. So I also created a sentiment for the other card that spells happy. Now I'm going to use a bit of paper towel that is wet on one end and dry on the other, and I'm going to rub it over the main images to remove any pixie powder that might be sticking on it. I'm also going to trim off on all 4 sides. So now my main panel is 4.5 by 6.5 inches. Now I wanted this to have just a bit more orange, so I'm blending on some carved pumpkin as well as Crackling Campfire on top of the middle of the Halloween card. I always think it's worth persisting until I get the effect that I want, even if it takes more than one go. Now I'm still not 100% happy with this panel, so I'm going to use a few Distress Oxides, Spice Marmalade and Wilted Violet, spray them with water, and just dab them around the outside. And then I'm going to heat this with my heat tool and just add a little bit more color on my card. So now I can attach the sentiments to my cards. I have Boo and Happy Halloween for the Halloween card and Happy Birthday for the other card. Then I'm going to adhere them both onto a 5 by 7 inch card blank. This way, both of the images will have a nice white border around them. As the main focal point is quite busy, having that white border just gives it that finished touch. Because I used glue to attach the front of the card, I'm being sure to push down all the edges to make sure that it's adhered on there properly. Now I'm going to repeat this with the Halloween card, and then I will set the cards aside until they're completely dry. I can't decide which one of these cards is my favorite. I would love to know which one you prefer. Let me know in the comments below. Well, I hope this has inspired you to try these techniques and has shown you how different your card can be just by changing the stamps that you use and the colors. I hope I've also inspired you to try something new. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you had as much fun as I did when I was making these cards. Have a crafty day.